tonight I've got Neil Bentley on, and he's going to be talking about Sirius 666 and the Black Sun. The number 666 because of what it's represented with Christians.
Okay.
And Saturn, the black cube, because again I have a different perspective on it. And I don't know anything about Sirius and the Black Sun apart from what I've picked up from Lucifer and the Kabbalah. So fire away, Neil. Let's have your expertise on the subject.
Right. Well, I'll start with 666 because it's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, there are, before I get to Sirius, there's been a manipulation in the timeline and what people know and understand. What I try and describe as what people know as being a pantomime or a circus act. You are allowed to know roughly 75% of the truth.
Yeah.
25% of it has been taken away. So basically, you were kept in a circus, you were kept watching the pantomime.
Yeah.
But without that extra 25% that has been taken away or altered or manipulated, you're still kept in the dark. Now, the truth in community as such, so far, 99.9% of everyone that calls themselves a truther or a researcher are studying the pantomime. It's like you're allowed to go and study Alice in Wonderland. You can study all you want, make as many connections as you want, make as many videos as you want, as long as you stay within the context of the book, of the story that's being fed to you.
Yeah.
You can say and do what you want. It's when you put this other 25% in that it adds a completely different perspective to the picture.
Before you go on, how did you get into this 25%, this different perspective? Because is that really boss? Because I started following the truth community because I kind of recognised the fragmented information that we were allowed.
Yes,
I actually toyed with the idea of joining the Freemasons because I was like, I want to know that 25%.
No, they won't tell you. They don't even know it.
A brief history of how you got to where you are today, and what was the trigger for you to start looking at this other 25%? How did you get there? Because not many people do.
No, I mean, people say, my niece said to me last Christmas, when did you wake up? When did you become a researcher? When did you become a truther? When the day I was born. My entire life I've been asking stupid questions. Now, I was born in 1966. So I lived through the 60s, 70s, 80s. All that time, I've always been asking stupid questions and making stupid observations that seem so natural at the time, but no one else made those observations. But because I was brought up in a time before computers and phones and all the rest of it, I was brought up in a little village in the middle of nowhere, so I had no access to libraries and books and things like that. So you just follow the system. You just live your life. The major change happened in 1997 when I got my first computer. And that was like someone giving me the keys to the Library of Alexandria. Every question that I could have ever thought of, the answer was there, but you find one answer and that leads on to 10 more questions. Been there. So about the first 20 years, I'd say 15 to 20 years, all I was studying was the circus, the pantomime. All of it. You name it, I've studied it in depth, to say the least. So then in probably say about 6 or 7 years ago, about 2 or 3 different pieces of information came to me that I just stumbled across, which was I call it the Irish cipher now. It was like finding a key. It was finding a cipher, because even when you're doing the researching bit, you're still coming across questions that still leave questions in your head. Yeah. Like the Sabu disc, for example, in Egypt. It's impossible. You take some of this stuff in Egypt that is dated at least 15,000 years old. You take one look at that and go, you might as well throw the history book out of the window, because that could not have been made by copper chisels and donkeys. So
Yeah.
about 6 or 7 years ago, first piece that I stumbled across was the R1B gene. Have you heard of that?
No.
Right. Well, if you look around the world, when you start hearing about the Sea People, the Phoenicians, the Shamshu-Ho, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed builder gods, every single civilization across the planet has got a story of these tall, white-skinned, red or blonde-haired Europeans with blue eyes coming to them with advanced knowledge. They taught them all this advanced knowledge. They went away and they all said, we'll come back later, and they never did. So that story is about as popular as the story of the Great Flood. So that one question has stayed with me all the time. Who are these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white-skinned people who came from Europe? So that is one that it just stayed with me. Then when you stumble across the fact that the R1B gene produces white skin, red hair, blue or green or hazel eyes. Now, the R1B gene was very first found in Ireland. The blue-eyed gene, which is a completely different gene, that also very first turns up in Ireland. So that sort of brought my focus to Ireland. Then I watched a reading of a book called Irish Wisdom Preserved in the Bible and Pyramids by Conor McDarry. Irish Wisdom Preserved in the Bible and Pyramids, Conor McDarry. Stupidly important piece of work. So that opened my eyes to Ireland being the centre of the knowledge and then it moving out of Ireland. So then that led me on down this whole island route, and Ireland being Atlantis. And then when Atlantis was sunk with the Starega slides around 7,000 years ago, that was the sinking of Atlantis. The Atlanteans, the Aryans left Ireland, and most of them went out around the world to re-educate the planets, re-educate the people, the knowledge they had lost before the Great Flood. Now, one of the main places they went to was Egypt, because Egypt had been there before the Great Flood. It had been completely smashed. So the Aryans, the Shamshu-Ho, whatever you want to call them, they went back to Egypt and they restarted Egypt. This was about 6,000 years ago after the Starega slides. Then they all basically got kicked out of Egypt after Akhenaten. All this knowledge had got dumbed down, and the priest classes had changed this knowledge for their own greed, their own manipulation. Akhenaten came along, and apparently Akhenaten read the original Hermetic teachings of Thoth. He realized that this ancient pure knowledge had been bastardized, in another word, for greed and purposes, and had broken away from what the pure knowledge was. So he tried to restart this knowledge with Heliopolis, was it called, when he built his own city? I think it was called Heliopolis. It was the city of the sun. He tried to restart this pure knowledge again, this sun worship. But because it had been ingrained within the priest classes and the knowledge of the public people for so long, he basically got shot down after a couple of decades. And him and his entire family and his offspring and all his followers, they all got kicked out of Egypt. This was about 1800 BC, and this was the Exodus. That was your biblical Exodus. Now, at that point, all these people that left, they came back to Britain. These were the tribes of Israel. So they all came back to Britain, and they restarted Britain. This was about 1000 BC, 1500 BC to about 1000 AD, this dark period of Britain. Well, it wasn't. It was Britain's second golden age. This was when Edinburgh was Jerusalem, York was Babylon, Cambridge was Troy, that sort of period. Now, what happened was the tribe of Dan, the Tuatha De Danann, when they were in Ireland, they got back to Ireland because they got back first because the sailors, they all had ships. So they got back to Ireland. They ruled over Ireland for about 300 years. Then the Milesians got back with Queen Scotia. They beat the Tuatha De Danann in the battle and basically kicked them out of Ireland. So what the tribe of Dan did was go to Rome. They took the British Christianity and the British Bible. They plagiarized it using Irish deities and British place names, and then gave it back to the world as Roman Christianity. So for the last 2,000 years, all Rome has been doing is basically hiding history, changing names, moving people around, doing everything that they can to put the center of attention back into the Mediterranean and keep you to stop looking at Britain and Ireland. So this is how this changing of names and things. So you'll have heard of the Mediterranean Sea people, the Phoenicians.
Yeah,
You've heard of the Phoenicians, these Mediterranean Sea people. Well, that's one of the major red herrings, because if you change the pH of the spelling of Phoenician and change the spelling to Phoenician, Fin, well, Fin means white in Irish. So these were the Irish Phoenicians. Have you heard of the Fenians, the Irish Fenians?
No.
Well, a lot of the Irish will call themselves the Fenians. They're the Phoenicians. So they were the sea people. The Irish Phoenicians are the sea people. So all that Rome did was change an F to a PH, set them in the Mediterranean. So every time you see the word Phoenician spelled with a PH, the picture that comes into your mind is the Mediterranean, these sea people with advanced knowledge, and you don't really know much more about them than that.
Yeah.
If you take that, come out of the circus and just change it to FIN, Phoenicians, the Irish Fenians, all of a sudden they're placed in Ireland. So then you've actually got somewhere to go. You know who they are, where they came from. You've got a story behind them and who they are, and you also know why they're also called the Phoenicians, because the phony Phoenicians with the phony phonetics. So basically, that's a quick historical rundown of the last, let's say, 8,000 years.
Can I ask a really juvenile question?
Yep.
Because my questions may sound juvenile to you with the education and the knowledge that you've got. If the blue, because I've heard about blue eyes being a mutation.
Yep.
Yeah. So if the Irish, the blue-eyed and the green-eyed and the hazel-eyed went to Egypt, of course, when we think of the Egyptians, we think of dark skin, we think of brown eyes, brown hair. Yeah. Where do brown-eyed people come into all of this? From Rome.
Right. Yeah, I can answer that one. Right, well, going back to, I was just saying Ireland was Atlantis.
Have you ever predated Atlantis, i.e. Lemuria? Have you ever looked into Lemuria?
Not Lemuria, no. I'm just about to go back there because what I was saying, Island Atlantis, is 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. So keep going back. Before that, 12,000 years ago, that was the Great Flood. That's when Sirius came back, which is what we're going to get onto.
Yeah.
Before that, I also need to explain this rising and lowering of the enlightenment, of the education, of our consciousness, the thinning of the veil. That's all related to Sirius. But fair to say, 15,000 years ago, we were massively more intelligent than we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are at our most stupid. We are at our dumbest point that we have ever been up to 24,000 years ago, because it's a cycle. What Sirius brings around is this cycle. It's 24,000 year cycle called the Golden Year.
Yeah.
So as we've only just gone past the furthest point away, 12,000 years ago, that's when Sirius was at its closest. So just before then, 15,000 years ago, we were 9, 10, 11, 12 foot tall, 500 IQs, massive pineal glands, interacting with each other, having a cosmic consciousness, if you will. At that point in our evolution, we knew Sirius was coming back because of this orbit that the Sun and Sirius do. So they knew that Sirius was going to come back and it was going to absolutely devastate the planet. It was just going to scorch everything, burn everything, drown everybody. So what they did is a certain amount of the population went to live underground. Now, when they did this, we were white. We were all white. Pure white skin. Now, a big percentage of the population went to live underground. This is where you get all these underground cities like Shambhala. They built these underground cities, and we know from the stuff that we found that they were experts in stonework. They could do anything with stone. So digging a hole underground and building some city underground would have been quite simple. But living underground would have also protected them from the devastation that Sirius was just about to bring back. So not all the people went to live underground. If you said half went underground, half stayed on the surface. So everyone that went on to live underground, let's say they were all, keep it easy, they were all 10 foot tall, pure white skin, massively high intelligence. They all went to live underground. The people that stayed on the top were exposed to everything that Sirius brought. So the radiation, the burning, the sun, all the rest of it. So I think this is where you get your division between the two races, two colours, white and brown. The ones that stayed on the surface were affected by the radiation. They were affected by Sirius and the sun and all the rest of it. They shrunk in stature. They got really, really dark brown skin. They got black hair, brown eyes from this exposure to the sun and Sirius. So when Sirius started moving away again, 9,000 to 10,000 years ago, some of the people that had been living underground decided to come back up to the surface again because the surface was starting to get inhabitable.
So this was 10,000 years ago when the surface was becoming habitable again.
Sirius has started moving away. The surface has started cooling down. It was starting to become inhabitable again. So some of the people that had initially gone to live underground came back up to the surface. Now, if I'm doing numbers, these are the fallen angels. So a third came back up to the surface.
Can I just interject there a second? Have you ever, I don't know what your opinion is regarding aliens and alien races, but there's an alien race called the Nordics who are blonde, who are depicted as what you're describing, very white skin, very blonde, very tall. Do you think there's some kind of connection there with? Because I don't know if you've heard of Jason Bashir's from Archaics. I don't follow him anymore. Okay, don't laugh. I don't follow him anymore. But he says that alien races live underground, not.
Well, again, this is me and Jason would argue like cat and dog because Jason's work is solely based on the Christian Bible.
Yeah.
Now, the Christian Bible was stolen and plagiarized from Britain. So what his entire work is based upon is from within the Roman Bible. The number of times I've tried to tell him that the Bible comes from Ireland and he keeps blocking me. So yeah, all right, if you want to think aliens are coming, no, they're not. This blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic race, I mean, the Nordic race come from Ireland, because if you look at the Danes, you've got to understand that the tribes of Israel all come from Britain. Nowhere out in the Middle East. All the tribes of Israel come from Britain. Britain is the Holy Land. The word Britain literally translates to people of the covenant. So that's the word Britain. So if you then take it further and look at the tribe of Dan, the Tuatha Danann in Ireland, they all had blonde hair, blue-eyed, tall, white skin. These are your Danites. That's why Denmark gets its name, Denmark, the mark of Dan. So even if you look at the deities from the Nordics, let's take Odin for example. Everyone talks about Odin. Now, Odin had 2 crows and he wandered the battlefields picking up souls of the fallen. Yeah. Well, if you predate that, you go back to Ireland and you've got the Morrigan, who had 2 crows and picked up the souls of the fallen from the battlefields. Lu, master of all the arts, Lu of the long arm, king of the Tuatha De Danann, he hung himself from a tree and sacrificed an eye for knowledge. He also carried around a magic spear. The Dagda had a big smash everything hammer. Lu was called the trickster god. So all these things that you find, these characteristics you find in deities all over the planet, are all taken from Irish and British deities, the characteristics of them. I mean, Loki, for example, the word Loki comes from Loka Brenna, which means the torch of Loki, which is another name for Sirius. But we'll get into that a bit later, because one of these aspects of Sirius is that it's big, bright, scorchy, burny thing, which, like I said, it comes back and burns and scorches everything every 24,000 years. So I don't believe Jason's partly got it right that there is a cycle, but it's a 24,000 year cycle. The Mayans nearly had it right, because remember in 2012 when everyone was talking about the end of the world and it was the end of the Mayan calendar. Yeah, it was the end of the Mayan calendar, but they only had half of the calendar. If you'd gone and looked at the Aztecs, they had the full 24,000 year calendar. Now, the Mayans only had half of the calendar up to 2012, because in 2012, that's when Sirius and the sun started coming back towards each other again. I know it might sound coincidental, but in 2012, they started coming back towards each other again. So for the last 12,000 years, there's been this falling of consciousness, the fall of man. From this point onwards, for the next 12,000 years, this is where we're going to raise. It's going to be the enlightenment of man. It's going to happen. It's going to happen not in our lifetimes, but it is going to happen.
You can actually see it now, though. You can actually see it now, and I hate to use the terminology, but the Great Awakening. I don't like using the terminology, but people are becoming more aware.
They're becoming more aware of the Circus Act.
Yeah.
But this extra 25%, I'm not seeing anybody. There's a handful of researchers now. I mean, I did a video a couple of weeks ago and I'm going to make another one where I actually lay out all these researchers, all these videos to actually, how do you get into it? Right, watch this video, follow this researcher. I mean, you were talking about Jason and his cyclical theory. I mean, he uses the Phoenix a lot. He calls it the Phoenix event. Has he ever told you that the Phoenix is just another name for Sirius? He hasn't told anybody that, as far as I'm aware. He just keeps calling it the Phoenix event. Well, Phoenix is another name for Sirius, and Sirius keeps bringing about this scorching event. And then as it's moving away, it dies off. And then it keeps coming back every 24,000 years. I mean, if you look in the Bible, you know the story of Archangel Michael and Satan, and Satan comes to Earth and they've got to do a battle, and then Archangel Michael's got to send Sirius away to save mankind. Well, in biblical terms, that's astrotheology, because Satan is another name for Sirius, and Saint Michael is the sun. So every time Sirius comes back and starts burning up the Earth, the sun has to defeat Sirius and send it away again, which is what happens every 24,000 years. So basically, yep.
Sorry, can I just touch on the 24,000 years? Because I'm looking at these times now and looking at it from an astrological perspective. You know, the age of Aquarius, if you like, and the astrological ages are actually 26,000 years. So are a couple of thousand years, it actually ties in. So is there a connection between Sirius and the astrological ages? So basically the work that I've done, and it's not been a lot, I'll be honest with you, I just dip my toes into these things, but the age of Aquarius carries certain energetic frequencies with it, which then we as so it's an air sign, so that will depict the technology that we're going into, freedom, lack of government. So that's why we're seeing a breakdown of governments and rules, etc., etc. Is there a connection?
I haven't gone down that route of connecting it to star signs. What an interesting connection that there is that we go back to 2012 and the Mayans and the Aztecs. The Mayans said that, the Aztecs said that in 2012, that was going to be the end of the fifth yellow sun. But by 2020, the sixth white sun, and they were really specific, because I mean, they said this like 1,000 years ago, and they said something like May 2020. They actually dated it, that the sixth white sun would have taken over completely. So in my work, I'm saying, well, because Sirius and our sun are binary partners, the direction Sirius is traveling and the distance it is from our sun has a direct correlation to what our sun looks like. So before 2012, when it was still moving away from us, this was when we had the yellow sun. As it's gone past halfway and then starts coming back towards each other, this is when things start heating up as well. So this electromagnetic connection that the sun and Sirius always have with each other is now growing in intensity, and it will do for the next 12,000, and it will do for the next 12,000 years. So if I can then sort of move on to Sirius a little bit, because the whole Britain, Atlantis, Bible, Ireland, etc., that's sort of one half of my work. One half, the other half of it. Yep.
Sorry, can I just ask, because I did have a theory about why they are trailing, the planes do the trailing thing, and I think that they are hiding this white sun and the heat.
Yeah, I think they're putting some kind of barrier up there to stop the energies getting to Earth.
Yeah.
But if I just start on the Sirius and then you just dive in with questions, because I'll probably get around to that anyway. So just sticking with Sirius, the first bit was just to explain why you've been lied to, how the lie came about, why Britain is so important in global history, why all that was hidden, who hid it from you, when they hid it from you, and why you're only getting 75% of the truth now, and this extra 25% has been taken away from you. Which, once I'm going to start doing videos on breaking them down. I don't know if you saw the one I did on 666 and Satan. No,
but I will watch that, because
rather than me explaining 666 right now, go and watch that 666 Satan video, because what I'm going to do on these videos is show the 75% that you already know, then add the 25% that you don't know to make the full video. So I did one on Satan, done one on 666, did one on the clowns. I'm doing one on Saturn, on Saturn Day. So I'll have a lot of answers for you on Saturday or whenever it goes up. And also a lot of explanation. There's so many things that people sort of like, they hear a word, they relate it to something, and that's it, stop.
Yeah.
Without the explanation. Once I get, this is the explanation of the bit that you don't know that actually links everything together. So we'll start on Sirius. So Sirius and our sun are binary partners. They're always connected. They're always making orbit. Now, this orbit that they make takes 24,000 years, and they make a vesica Pisces shaped orbit with each other. Yeah. Like I say, when they come together, that was 12,000 years ago. Right now, they're at the furthest points apart and just started to come back towards each other again. That's where they are right now. So you can trace this back through the times. When we started looking at stuff at 5,000, 10,000 years ago and going, how the hell did they make that? We haven't got a clue. We can't make that today. this is why, because of this electromagnetic connection that Sirius and the sun always have. As they move back towards each other, this is the raising of enlightenment. So Sirius is 27 times hotter than our sun. It's the daddy in this partnership. So if you imagine, where did I put it? There it is. Do you imagine the sun to be a crystal ball? Easiest way to do it. Now, the sun focuses the energy that is coming from Sirius. It goes through the sun and down to the earth. So you'll hear terms like the light. If you're studying the occult, you'll hear words, the light, the light, the light, walk into the light. It's all about the light. Everything's about the light. Well, the light, all the light is this electromagnetic energy that's traveling from Sirius through the sun down to the earth. This is
like a prism.
Yeah, the sun is like a magnifying glass. This is why it's called. This is why they call it sun worship. It's not actually worshiping the sun; they're worshiping the energy. But they can't just call it energy, so they've got to put something there to actually describe it as. So they call it the sun or the light, or there's various terms that they use for this energy. The force. Everyone's heard of the force. Ethereal energy, subtle energies. These are all the same thing. The veil. These are all. This is the raising and lowering of these energetic levels as Sirius and the sun move towards each other and then get further apart. So, like as they move further apart, this is the fall of man, where we get dumber and dumber and dumber and shrink and get smaller. As Sirius and the sun start moving back towards each other, from now on, this is just the rise of man, the enlightenment. So basically, that's a quick description of this connection that Sirius and the sun always have. And this is...
Carry on. I'm just going to put a log on the fire. Carry on. Can't get cold. Sorry, carry on.
I'll bring you some logs from work.
Oh, nice one.
I'm a joiner. We're always throwing wood away. That's what we do. Turn wood into dust. They don't call us wood butchers for nothing.
I'm always up for some free wood. That sounded so wrong. That's so wrong.
Skitfuls of it away. Right. So basically, that's a brief explanation of the connection of Sirius and our sun. So the number of times that you will see Sirius every single day, you'll see examples of it hundreds of times without even knowing anything about, without knowing anything about it. It's just there all the time. And until you actually go through a decipher, until you know all the names of what it's called and why it's called those names. So in modern media, you will see that. You'll see everyone doing that all the time. Yeah?
Yeah.
And everyone will go, it's the all-seeing eye, it's the eye of providence, it's the eye of Horus, he's a Satanist, the eye of providence is just another name for Sirius. So this is where you get a connection between the pentagram and the name Satan. That's what
that's the inverted pentagram.
That's all. That's it. That's it. The eye of providence, the eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye. They're just names for Sirius.
I don't have. That's why I started looking into the occult, because I wanted to understand. Obviously, I've not gone to the depths of it, but I wanted to understand what everybody in the truth community says is evil. I believe are actually powerful symbols, like your all-seeing eye, like your pentagram.
I don't think they even are that. I don't think the pentagram comes from the Unia star of the Sira people, and the pentagram of the Sira people simply represents Sirius. So that's where the pentagram comes from. Satan is another name for Sirius.
the pentagram or pentacle because I'm studying witchcraft at the moment as well. So you've got the 4 elements, and then the 5th element is a sun, but we don't need, that's just confusing. That's muddying waters. Again, you can look at, we don't want to muddy waters. But yeah, I'm with you that all these symbols that all the truth is evil, it's evil.
No.
I don't.
Most of the time, these symbols that people see, or these names, they're just red herrings. They're just triggers. I mean, if you just go and look up the Unir people, the Unir star, Yoonir, the Unir star of the Sirius people, it represents Sirius. If you go and look at Sopdet in Egypt, she's always got a 5-pointed star over her head, and Sopdet represents Sirius. So the 5-pointed star always represents Sirius. That's it. There's nothing more than that. There's no energies in there. There's no hidden. So again, this is sort of like you get pre-programmed with these words and these symbols. I say the Baphomet, and everyone's head will explode. Oh, it's the Baphomet.
I love Baphomet. I've got a chalice with Baphomet.
Okay, when was it created?
Oh my God, it's I've no idea.
When was the Baphomet created?
I've no idea. I don't know.
1850 by Elphys Levi.
That's right. Of course, I did know that because I've read part of his book. Duh. Transcending Magic. Absolutely, I did know that. Go on.
Elphys Levi created the Baphomet in 1850, and he plagiarized it from Cernunnos, the horned hunter god, the Irish god. So I keep saying all these things are plagiarized from Ireland. So the Baphomet is simply plagiarized from Cernunnos. That's all it comes from.
Which is an Irish horned god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of these gods of nature. It's the god of the forest. It's the hunter god from the forest. That's all. But then they plagiarize these things and put them out to you as things to frighten you. Again, back in the Satan video I did, we looked at the Church of Satan.
I've looked at the Church of Satan.
Yeah, but the Church of Satan, all they wanted to do was create some attention. He didn't know anything about Satanism. He didn't know anything about the occult. All he wanted to do was create a cult that would scare people, get lots and lots of attention. So he just used the word Satan a lot, used the word red and black, used the Baphomet, used a 5-pointed star. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about him worshipping Satan and whatever. But
principles of the Church of Satan, the damn good principles.
I don't. Again, whatever word you're talking about principles. Let's talk about principles then. The Freemasons. Now, the Freemasons were very first created, thousands of years ago in Ireland. Thousands of years ago, and they were created as we had this falling of consciousness 6,000 to 10,000 years ago in Ireland. What they knew then. Because we communicated telepathically. There wasn't any writing. We didn't need any writing. No one could tell a lie. Everything had to be perfect all the time. There was no greed, no egos, no materialism. All that comes into play later during the falling of man.
Yeah.
So as we had this falling of man, let's say 9,000 years ago, just keep it simple. 9,000 years ago, they knew that there was going to be this fall. As Sirius moved away, there'd be a reduction in intelligence. So what they had to do is take this common knowledge that they knew then, that everybody knew, which was just common knowledge for everybody. What they had to do is take this knowledge and save it, preserve it. So what they did, they did 2 things with it. They created organized religion for the masses. Now, the best word you could understand that today, it would be Gnosticism.
Yeah.
Every single religion across the planet is based on Gnosticism. And organized Gnosticism only really came into play in Egypt, where after they moved to Egypt and the Nag Hammadi and works like that. But the easiest way for us to understand it right now is the Irish, this organized religion that the Irish came up with, that was based on Gnosticism. They also created the mystery schools. the private knowledge. Now,
Yeah.
again, the best way we can understand that today would be Hermeticism, the Hermetic teachings.
Yeah.
That was your mystery schools. So they created organized religion and mystery schools. This was, let's say, 9,000 years ago. And this was what I was saying. They then took out to Egypt. They perfected all this when they were in Egypt. But then, because we had this falling of man and the raising of greed, the raising of the ego, the raising of materialism, this is why the priest class then bastardized the pure knowledge into something that they could use themselves. And why, when Akhenaten came along 3,000 years later, he realized what had been done to this pure knowledge and tried to revert back to the original teachings. So that's how this organized religion, and that's why Britain was the center of organized religion and organized mystery schools. But right now we're talking about Freemasons. So the Freemasons were created to protect this knowledge, to keep this knowledge and protect it and to keep it secret. They were like your first secret society, but this is thousands of years ago in Ireland. So then later on, when we get this twist in history, this twist that was brought about, this lie, this deception, if you look at the Freemasons now, you will be told the Freemasons were created in a pub in London in 1717. That's the official story of the modern Freemasonry. In a pub in London, 1717. Now, but if you actually look at modern Masonry, what it's based on is ancient Irish knowledge, ancient Egyptian knowledge, and Turkish Sufism. Now, they weren't even around when the Freemasons were very first created back in Ireland. So this modern Masonry thing that everybody sees today, this Freemasonry thing, it's just a plagiarization. Again, it's part of the Circus Act.
See, I was under the impression that Freemasonry was created to. I was under the impression that Freemasonry was created to go against the Christian Church. This is what I've read from a book. What I've read, going against the Christian Church to have these deep philosophical conversations, which the Christian Church didn't want you having.
I'd have it that the Christian Church actually created Freemasonry.
You think that they did?
The modern Masonry, yeah. Because I've got we'll just call it Rome. They created this modern timeline. They created this Circus Act. Everything with, was it George Carlin that said they lied about everything? They literally lied about absolutely everything. I can't find anything that they didn't lie about. This is why I keep telling Carly, I can make a video a day. I could turn out 1,000 videos because everywhere I look, I find their story with this bit missing. And every single time I can add this bit every time. And it also just makes the whole thing clear that you can understand it. So if we can go back to Sirius, because it might take
Sorry, yeah.
It's all right.
I'm taking people off track.
It's all right. I get problems of getting dragged off all over the place. Like I said, the whole story is that vast to try and keep it on track. Because 1 minute I'm talking about Sirius, then I'm talking about Ireland, then I'm talking about Egypt, and your head explodes after a while, and you can't understand it or keep up with it. That's why I'm trying to break it down into small videos, which are actually consumable, bite-sized pieces, if you will. But like I say, I've just done one on Satan and 666, and it was an hour and a half long. I'm doing one on Saturn on Saturday, and I'm expecting that to be an hour and a half long. So if you want deep videos that really go into it with a lot of knowledge and a lot of things to back it up with, something that you're going to come out with, and your head's going to be spinning with about 10 new ideas, a page full of notes, that'd be perfect in my world.
Yeah.
But then we come down to the issue of YouTube, because like I say, I'm a joiner. I've got a full-time job, trying to do that and do the videos at the same time.
Yeah.
Have you seen Library of the Untold?
Yes.
Any of you stuff, Joey in Library of the Untold?
Yeah,
I'm having a chat to him in a couple of weeks. In fact, actually, the first video of Saturn that he did, because we've been having a chat, I just said, I want to do one on Saturn with this Irish cipher added to this.
Yeah.
Because, like I said at the start, I've been studying, I probably know their stories better than they know them because I was studying them for 20 years. So I must have seen, in that time, I must have seen 20 different videos, all covering Saturn. But they all said exactly the same thing. The 75% bit that everybody knows. If you've seen one video on Saturn, you've seen 20 videos on Saturn.
Yeah.
So this is why I want to do Saturn, the Irish cipher, with this extra 25% added that people don't know about. So then they can go, oh, shit, I never knew that. That really opens the book as to why this and why that, etc.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say too much about Saturn just at the moment because I'll give too much away. Right, aspects of Sirius. So Sirius is 27 times hotter. It's the daddy. It's one of its names is the Scorcher because it comes back and scorches everything.
I've got another question. It revolve around Saturn and the Sun. So going back to, it popped into my head when you were talking about the Sun and the Sun being a magnifying glass for Sirius. So is the Sun not this big burning ball? Because there's been a lot of talk in the truth community about the light. About the light that's been put up there, the false sun.
Yeah, I've seen the videos saying it's a LED light.
That's
and then breaking it down and seeing all these little hexagons that make up an LED light. I've seen shitloads.
I've not gone as far as that. I just heard that China had put this LED light up in the sky, and
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah,
being a magnifying glass. I thought maybe it is like it's not the big burning ball that we've been told that it is. Please.
Have you seen the Three-Body Problem?
No.
The Netflix series. Right. Well, in the Three-Body,
watching it actually, and I switched it off.
I'd highly recommend it. But I watched. If you're writing something down, if you go onto YouTube, there's a channel on YouTube called Quinn's Ideas. Quinns. Quinn's Ideas, and he did a 4-hour talk on the Three-Body Problem. I'd watch that rather than watching the Netflix thing, or watch that and then go and watch it, because that's an explanation. He really goes into all the problems that the Three-Body Problem throws up and why it leaves your head spinning. You can watch it on the Netflix, but you won't quite grasp the concept of what they're trying to tell you. If you go and watch the Quinn's Idea, because he explains them all, and when he's looking at like the dark forest problem and all the problems that this Netflix thing throws up. Now, part of the Three-Body Problem in the Netflix, right at the start, they're trying to put a message out to space. What's it called? SETI, was it? When they're trying to put a message out, we are friendly, come here, come and see us, etc. Yeah, we keep sending messages out into space. Well, in the Three-Body Problem, this was the Chinese, what they did was use the sun, and they sent this message into the sun and used the sun as a magnifying glass to focus, as a jump for this message that they were sending out. Well, if you imagine that, but reverse it. So you've got the energy coming in from Sirius, goes through the sun, focused on Earth. Now, I'm presuming from your work you'll know about 8/8, 8th of the 8th, Golden Gate, the Lion's Gate, the Golden Gate, the Lion's Gate.
I've never looked a lot into it.
Well, you know what I'm talking. You'll have heard of it. If I just say 8/8 Golden, the 8th. Right. Well, on the 8th of the 8th, if I just go back to me sun model, here we go. As I said, the sun. That way. So on the 8th of the 8th, what happens is, if that's the sun, that's Earth. That's Earth. So I'm trying to work back. I'm trying to work back to front here. I've got a torch. So that's better. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's Sirius. This torch. That way. There we go. That's Sirius.
Yeah.
The crystal ball is the sun. The foam ball is Earth. Now, on the 8th of the 8th, all these three align perfectly.
Okay.
So this energy coming from Sirius So this energy coming from Sirius, this is when they all align on the 8th of the 8th. So the energy goes straight through the sun to the earth. That's when they
Is
form.
that every year?
Yeah. Every year on the 8th of the 8th.
Yeah.
All three align, and the energy goes straight through the sun to the earth. Now, all the other time, it's at an angle, so it has to come down and up. So this is when they say the 8th of the 8th. This is when the veil is at its thinnest, when the illumination is at its strongest.
Is that what's depicted on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album? Is it Dark Side of the Moon? It's got the prism, hasn't it? It's got
the prism.
It's coming down and then going up again.
I'm not sure. I've never looked at it in that sort through those glasses, if you will. I'll go back to look, because what I'll do is go back to look and then look at every track that he's put on there and see if any of the tracks are related back to Sirius. Because again, I could sit here for an hour on all the different music tracks that are related back to Sirius, and that's when you really start getting into the depths of it, and you understand you understand all the names. Just one off my head: Madonna, Lucky Star, it's Sirius. If you go and listen to the words again, it's all about Sirius. Bananarama, Venus, you'll know that one. Yeah. Venus is another name for Sirius. Now, that will conveniently take me onto this little bit where I want to talk about one of the aspects of Sirius, which is the fertility aspect. So this is also very important, because we're back to Egypt. On the 4th of July every year, on the morning of the 4th of July, in the east, Sirius pops up. The only day of the year, Sirius pops up in the east on the 4th of July, in the morning of the 4th of July. And weirdly, that's every 365.2 days. It's exactly a year. Not adding a bit, not taking a bit away, not 365 days, 365.2 days. Every year, Sirius pops up. So Sirius was massively important because the 4th of July marked the start of the Egyptians' harvesting season, the planting season. It was when the rains came, when the Nile flooded. When the Nile flooded, that brought... you back?
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right.
I don't mean to interrupt you, no.
It's all right. When the Nile floods, that brings the facility to the land. That's when they can do all the planting, and that's when they're harvesting. So this 4th of July is probably the most important date in the Egyptian calendar. So it raises on the 4th of July. Now, we all know that date from American Independence Day.
Yeah. It
raises in the east. So if you're into the occult, you'll have heard of the Eastern Star.
Yeah, Lucifer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Eastern Star is another name for Sirius. The Morning Star. The Morning Star is another name for Sirius. Lucifer is another name for Sirius.
Yeah.
So this leads on to like this fertility aspect that Sirius has. So if we take names like Mother Mary at Sirius, Diana, Sirius, Ishtar, Sirius. Just trying to think. There's that many of them. There's all these fertility names. But what I was saying about Venus, everyone gets confused with, if you say Venus, everyone will say Lucifer.
Yeah.
Morning Star, Lucifer, Venus. Well, that's kind of correct, but you've got the wrong Venus. Because when everyone says Venus, everyone thinks about the planet Venus. Yeah, so they're thinking about the planet Venus, Lucifer, and the Morning Star. That's your twist. That's your red herring. Because when they say Venus, what they're talking about is the Roman fertility goddess, Venus. So the Roman goddess, Venus, is Sirius. So Sirius, the Morning Star, and Lucifer are all just names for Sirius. So that's where you get this confusion when people say Venus. Oh, Venus, yeah, that's Lucifer. That's the Morning Star. Yeah, but they're not talking about the star Venus, the planet Venus. They're talking about the Egyptian fertility goddess, Venus. So that's where you get this curveball of taking you down a different mindset of not knowing that they're actually talking about the Roman goddess Venus, and they're not talking about the planet Venus. So where you then take these aspects, so let's have a look at the, I said you see it everywhere, so let's have a look at the Statue of Liberty. Right, we've already said the Torch of Loki is another name for Sirius, because that's Loka Brenner, and the Statue of Liberty obviously has a big torch in her hand. Now around the head she has a crown which has 7 spikes on it. Now another name for Sirius is the 7th heavenly star. So every time you see the number 7 or the heavenly star, lucky 7, 7's whatever, the 7 is always talking about Sirius. So these spikes, these 7 spikes that are on the Statue of Liberty's head, is referring to the 7th heavenly star, Sirius. The Statue of Liberty. Then she's got a book. Sorry?
The Statue of Liberty is Lucifer. I learned the other day. I mean, they're all the same thing, aren't they?
Lucifer's just, but Lucifer's Sirius. Lucifer's just another name. Lucifer's just another name for Sirius. The Statue of Liberty, everything about the Statue of Liberty is Sirius. Don't try and take them separately. They're all names for Sirius.
Why does Sirius have all these names?
Because Sirius is the most important star in the sky. Sirius controls the rising and lowering of the etheric levels. Sirius controls this 24,000 year golden year. Sirius is the most important. Sirius is the most important star on Earth. This controls like our rising, our lowering, the energetic levels. Sirius controls absolutely everything, which is why I say Sirius is so important that it just gets these names, but people then take it out of context. So people will say Lucifer, and the first thing they think about is Venus. But they think about the planet Venus. If they were to think the goddess Venus of Rome, and they were also to think the morning star, and then someone said, you know something, Lucifer, Venus, and Lucifer, Venus they're just names for Sirius. That's all they are. They're all names for the same thing. So you get different descriptions pulling you around all over the place, having these pictures that you're already programmed with. I mean, I say the word Satan, and everyone thinks about some red ugly dude. Again, I went into breaking this down. Satan is just another name for Sirius. And actually, just to add some meat onto that bone, that if you take the word Satan and break it down, it's actually a compound of 2 Irish words, say and tan. Say means the, tan means jackal. So Satan, the jackal. Now Satan is Sirius, and Sirius is the dog star.
Yeah. Cool connection.
The word Satan is taken from the Irish deity Satanta, who actually is Lou the Lightbearer's son. Lou in Cypher, Lou the Lightbearer. So Satanta is his son, and Satanta's full name is Satanta the Hound. So every time you see these words, Satan, the Hound, Satan, the dog, it all goes back to Sirius. It's all names just in astrotheology. It all just goes back to Sirius. So, just carrying on with the Statue of Liberty. She's got a book in her left hand, which has the 4th of July written on it. We're back to Egypt with Sirius popping up on the 4th of July. And just by pure coincidence, she just happens to be facing east. And like I say, Sirius rises in the east in the morning of the 4th of July. So, in fact, I'll just take this on one more step, because everybody knows about the $1 bill, don't you?
Yeah.
The pyramid and the eye of the pyramid. Well, what did I just say? Sirius rises in the east on the 4th of July. So you've got your picture of your pyramid. You've got the sun thing behind the pyramid. The sun thing, another name for the sun thing is the Eye of Providence, and the Eye of Providence is Sirius. So basically, the $1 bill, when you see that pyramid with the sun thing behind it, what it's talking about is this Sirius popping up on the 4th of July in Egypt. That's all it is. The all-seeing eye is Sirius. So that's the explanation of why the $1 bill has that pyramid and the all-seeing eye on it. Have you seen any videos on Washington DC, on the layout of Washington DC? If you watch any videos, every video will tell you exactly the same. They'll show you a pentagram that's been made from the road layout.
Yeah.
They'll show you an obelisk, and they'll show you the Capitol building. Of those three things that are laid out on the ground in Washington DC, and over the obelisk there's Vesica Pisces. So as we've already said, the orbits of the Sun and Sirius make the Vesica Pisces. That's why that's there. And if anyone would open a window up and just put into the window Egyptian glyph for Sirius, the Egyptian hieroglyph for Sirius contains a 5-pointed star, an obelisk, and a dome. So the whole layout of Washington DC is based on the Egyptian glyph for Sirius. That bit, no one will ever tell you. I mean, they show you the obelisk, and they show you the dome, and they show you the 5-pointed star, and every single time they'll talk about it's some Masonic Egyptian fertility ritual that's laid out on the ground, and that's about all they'll tell you, but you'll never actually find out what it is. You're always left with questions. So next time you see any videos about the layout of Washington DC, just look up the Egyptian glyph for Sirius and you'll see it straight away. You cannot ignore it. So that's where Sirius gets all these these fertility aspects and these goddess symbols for what it is. Quick one on the red, white, and blue. You see red, white, and blue everywhere.
Yeah.
Literally everywhere. It's all over television. It's on the flags. Everywhere you look, it's red, white, and blue. So let's have a quick explanation of why red, white, and blue. We've got the red political parties, the blue political parties. You've got the red and blue in the Freemasons, the Red Lodge, the Blue Lodge.
You've got Darth Vader and the other one with his red and blue, whatever they call them, lightsabers.
Red, white, and blue, literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, this is again, it's quite simple because Sirius is called a white dwarf star, so that gets you white. Now, do you know anything about the Doppler effect?
Doppler?
It's the Doppler effect.
No.
Now, this is what happens when white light moves away from you. The frequency gets stretched. If a normal frequency, a normal light frequency, going up and down, up and down, as that white light frequency, as Sirius moves away, that up and down wave gets stretched into a longer wave.
Yeah.
Now, if you to look at that, you would initially see white, and then as it's moving away from you, the white would turn red. It'd look red if it was moving away from you because of the stretching of the wavelength. Now, as the white light then moves back towards you, and this wave then gets compressed, it would look blue. So as Sirius moves away from us, it's red, and that's called the red dragon. As Sirius moves towards us, that's blue, and that's what's called the blue dragon. And then obviously the white, because it's a white dwarf star. So that's the explanation of basically your red, white, and blue is the Doppler effect of this white dwarf star moving away from us and then coming back towards us with the Doppler effect of making it look different colours. So that's the explanation of where you see red, white, and blue everywhere.
Okay.
So a quick one, we already touched on this one. The other aspect of Sirius is the scorcher, the burning one. So, like I said, Sirius is 27 times hotter than our sun. As it starts getting towards us, as it starts getting back here, it basically sterilizes the planet as such. It starts burning everything up. This is why they had to go and live underground. So if you look at 12,000 years ago, last time that Sirius was at its closest, basically, you know, when you see like Petra, when it's all been melted, you see all these melted buildings absolutely everywhere. You can also study Velikovsky's, the Purple Dawn theory, worlds in collision. That is very much, if you look at Velikovsky's work, that plays very much into Sirius when it comes back, because you get these plasma strikes because of this rising of this electromagnetic connection. Velikovsky correctly claims that this space is electric. It's not a vacuum. Everything about space is electric. So this is when you get all these plasma storms, where you've got scarring all over Mars, you've got scarring all over the Earth when you have these plasma strikes. This is also why I would disagree with Jason, because I don't think you can get into space. I think space is electric, and if you actually go into space, you'll just get fried straight away. Zip, gone. So I don't think space travel is even possible unless you can bend the laws of physics and do this folding of space and beam straight to a point. I don't think you can take a ship and go into space.
But Jason doesn't believe in space. He don't think he thinks
Is
space is
he on flat Earth thing?
I'm not entirely sure. I've not watched him for a while, but from memory, I'm pretty sure he doesn't think that space is a thing. But I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Well, if he's believing in flat Earth, 8 times d squared isn't the equation for flat Earth. I was studying flat. He's actually lead me into a slightly different story. Eric Dubai's 200 Proofs an Earth's Not a Spinning Ball came out in 2015, and that's when the flat Earth theory really took off. Up to then, no one had heard of it. Everyone started watching Eric Dubai's videos, and ever since then, everyone's jumped on board. Earth's flat. I know the Earth's flat. Earth's flat. Blah blah blah. Well, in 2008, I was living out in Blackpool, and I was working at the other end of Blackpool. So every morning, every night, I drove up and down the front of Blackpool. I used to have relations that lived over at Dalton at Barrow-in-Furness, which is across Morecambe Bay, straight across Morecambe Bay. I'm stood at the tower. I'm looking at the beach at Dalton and going, I used to play on that beach as a kid. Now, part of the research I did, I just stumbled across one question, and it said, if you were stood at sea level, how far out to sea can you see? And I'm going, well, I can see Dalton and I can see Barrow and I can see the shipworks and all the rest of it. So I'm guessing about 25 to 30 miles minimum. So the answer was 3 miles for anyone that studied flat Earth. So this started me off on this. Well, I can see 30 miles. Why is it telling me 3 miles when I can see 30 miles? So from that point onwards, I spent years drip, drip, drip. It's flat. It's flat. All the equations are wrong. Everything's wrong about the equations. What I'm being told, what I can see, and what I'm being told are two completely different things. And I spent years and years and years as it started as a side project, but actually became a major project. But before then, there was nothing on the internet. There wasn't video after video after video where I could just go and educate myself from YouTube videos on flat Earth. I was coming up with my own experiments and my own ideas and shadows and timings of things. I was doing all this by myself. And by about 2012, 2013, I was 100% convinced the Earth was flat. I was also convinced that I was the only person on the planet that thought it was flat, because this was years before this Eric Dubai video ever came out. So I kind of almost accepted that and moved on by the time this 200 Proofs an Earth Not a Spinning Ball came out. So obviously I nearly dropped through the floor. As soon as that came out, I'm like, what? Got to watch this. So as I'm watching the video, all these things that he's claiming, I'd come up with different answers for. One of which was the equation for the missing curvature. So the equation that I'd come up with was pretty complicated. I actually had to go on the internet, find it, and I couldn't even repeat. I couldn't say what it is because it's that complicated. But every flat earther, till today, if you ask them what is the equation for the missing curvature, every one of them tell you 8 times d squared. It's a cornerstone of flat Earth, 8 times d squared, 8 times the distance squared. As soon as I saw that and everyone's jumping on board with that, I'm going, it's not that. that isn't the equation for the missing curvature. And then I put the two equations next to each other to see how they compared with something that I knew. And this 8 times d squared, every single time it came back with a number at least 3 times too big than what it should be if I put it through my equation. So I was thinking, right, well, they've exaggerated it to get a much bigger number, and they've also spoon-fed them to something that a 2-year-old could remember. A two-year-old can remember 8 times d squared, but if I start bringing in sines and cosines and constants and all the rest of it into an equation, no one would ever be able to remember it, and no one would ever be able to work it out. So it was that really set me on this path of almost trying to prove myself wrong, because up to then I thought the earth was flat. I found loads of faults in this video that I'm watching, and then I went on a mission to prove them all wrong. So I was proving myself wrong.
That's class.
But then, as I started understanding this Gnosticism and this ancient knowledge and this ancient stuff that was all around Ireland, never once did I ever come across the word flat Earth. They never talked about it.
Yeah.
It's all right saying all these old people talked about it, but if you really go back to the start of knowledge, no one ever talked about it.
But it's in the Bible, isn't it?
Which Bible?
I've no idea. I've just heard it from Christians saying that it's in the Bible. I've never read the Bible. I've never studied the Bible. I've never been religious. But when I've been arguing the case of it not being flat, people have said, but it's in the Bible.
Yeah, but like I just said, the first question to that, which Bible? What, the 1611 King James Version, that one? The one that everyone likes to use and quote, the one that was written by a Freemason 400 years ago. I mean, just for example on that one, in fact, I will chuck in a bit here because I need to explain this. Right, 1611, the King James Version Bible, the one that everyone loves to quote. Right, firstly, King James was a Freemason, so it was written by a Freemason. Secondly, a lot of it is a mistranslation. So I'm going to go on to 666 here in the King James Version.
So, welcome back. Just a quick interlude there, and then technical difficulty. So, and I don't know why now. Our images are really small. So,
I'm going to say it's completely changed.
Yeah.
Don't touch it. If you've got it working, don't touch it.
I'm not. So, 666, my favourite number.
Yeah, it might not be it might not be in a couple of minutes.
Well, it has to be. 666 has followed me around all my life, Neil. It's actually even in my phone number.
Is it?
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you. You might have to change it.
Come on.
Okay, let's start on 666. Well, this is just an example of the red herring that you are fed and why it's wrong and why even they get it wrong. I've been saying for years, I think that they've forgotten. I think they've spent that long hiding all this history that they've even forgotten themselves of what the history is. So if we take the King James Version, which is 1611, 400 years old, the quote says 666 is the number of the beast and the number of man. Correct? Yeah. Have you read the book of Revelations from the Dead Sea Scrolls? Right, well, that's 2,000 years old. That's 2,000 years old. That's 1,500 years older than the King James Version. The problem was that they didn't find the Dead Sea Scrolls until 1947. So during the 1800s and the early 1900s, when occultism was on the rise and everyone was interested in it, basically the number 666 got welded into common knowledge that 666 was the number of the beast. Yep. So imagine their embarrassment that in 1947, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there was a book of Revelations in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and in this book of Revelations, it actually says the number of the beast is 616. 616.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was the number, this is done in Hebrew, not Roman. So the number is in the book of Revelation, from the Dead Sea Scrolls. The number is XIC. What they mistranslated the XIC, which is 610 and 6. They mistaken the I for an L. So what they wrote was XLC, and L stands for 600. Sorry, 60. So XLC is 666. But this mistranslation they should have read was XIC, which is 616, 616. So 666 is just simply a mistranslation of the number 616. And to take that even further, is that in most of the books of Revelations that you will ever read, in that particular passage, what it says is 616 is the number of the beast, man. Not two separate entities, man. Man is the beast. So man is the beast because if you look at genetics, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes.
Yeah.
Now a pedigree has 24 pairs of chromosomes. 12, 24.
So we're mongrels.
Yeah, we're hybrids. We're hybrids. We are the Nephilim. We're the fallen ones. We are the offspring of the fallen angels. Because we have this inbuilt, let's say, God ability, we are mini gods. We are creating our own realities. We are little versions of gods.
Yeah.
So we were the children of the Nephilim, who are the fallen angels, and these fallen angels are this third of humanity that came back from living underground. These tall, white-skinned people that had been living underground, they came back up to the surface, saw these nicely tanned chicks knocking around everywhere. Well, I'm having a bit of that, like the tan. So they had then we had the offspring. We had the offspring of the Nephilim, which is why we only have 23 pairs of chromosomes and not 24 pairs of chromosomes. So
who's the Anunnaki then? Who are the Anunnaki?
Right.
Because
yeah. It's all right. Anunnaki. Again, red herring. Change a few letters, change the spelling, put it out in the Middle East, and all of a sudden you don't know who they are. Right. So another name for the Anunnaki is the sons of Anu. Yeah. Another name for the sons of Anu is the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of Dan. The Tuatha De Danann are called the sons of Anu because their mother goddess figure is called Anu. So if you take the word Anunnaki, you take the word Naki. Now, Naki is Irish for serpent.
Can I just... What do you say to someone who's in a bad mood? You're a bit narky.
Yeah, yes. Well, it's a serpent. Naki is Irish for serpent. If you can get a connection between being in a bad mood and being a serpent, yeah, maybe.
Well, from an occult perspective, I'm not even going to go there. But the serpent is another creature that's been demonized.
Do you know tannin and tannim?
No.
Again, it's a mistranslation. The word jackals is, in Hebrew, it's tanim. The word for serpent is tannin. It's tanim and tannim. So this is where you get this crossover between serpent and Satan, the jackal. It's just a mistranslation of tannin and tanim. The word tannin means serpent or dragon. The word tannin means the jackals. So this is where when you start hearing about, it's the Satan in the Garden of Eden and he's a serpent. It was just a mistranslation of tannin and tanim. There isn't really any connection between Satan and serpents, apart from this mistranslation. So that's where you get that little cross over. But then if we go back to what you were saying about the Anunnaki, right, the Anunnaki, these advanced demigods that landed on a cloud in a mountain one night, and they brought all of this advanced knowledge. Well, if you go and study the story of the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of Dan, they are called the sons of Anu, and they landed in a cloud on top of a mountain one night in Ireland. So the whole story of the Anunnaki has been basically set out in the Middle East and just given a different name. If you took that entire story and then took it back to Ireland, you get a lot more out of the story if you set it in Ireland rather than out in the Middle East. Another one for breaking that down is they landed in Sumeria. Well, the word Sumer means sun in Irish. So you've got the Sumer Aryans, Sumerians. So the Aryans, they came from Ireland. And again, if I just break away from that for 2 seconds, we're back to another one of your red herring trigger words, Aryan. So if I say the word Aryan, this trigger word automatically thinks Germany, Hitler, blue-eyed master race, and you see the word Aryan and you spell it in your head, A-Y-A-R-Y. Yeah, Aryan, A-R-Y-A-N. That's how you spell it in your head. Now, if you just simply change the spelling of the word Aryan to the word Aryan, E-I-R-E, Air is Ireland. So the people who come from Air are Aryans. So that's, and then you're back to your R1B gene, which is white skin, blonde hair, blue eyed, this master race. They're the Aryans from Air. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's where you get those little red herrings. We keep throwing these little red herrings in to stop you looking at Ireland. If they spell
who are they? Who are they? I always ask that question. Who are they? Because I don't believe it's
a simple. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of not a simple answer would be the Vatican.
Okay.
It would be a simple answer, but it's not a simple answer because if you say they. Now, these people who control the world today, the elites. Now, the Tuatha De Danann, another name for the Tuathas, was called the Elven folk. So every time anyone says Els, elites, I translate that to Elvins, the Elven folk, the Tuatha De Danann and the tribe of Dan. Basically, it was the tribe of Dan that stole British Christianity. It's the tribe of Dan, you know, like today, the trilateral state of the Vatican, London, and Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Trilateral state. Yeah, well, it's the tribe of Dan that control the trilateral state. So, you know, the city of London. Well, another name for the Tuatha De Danann is the 13th Order of the Dragon. So if you take the city of London, the city of London is surrounded by dragon statues, 13 of them by coincidence. So the city of London is owned by the tribe of Dan. It's the tribes of Israel that are alive today that are the various these are the various factions around the world who are your controllers. These are they. They are the different tribes of Israel. If you look at the emblem for the tribe of Manasseh, you know the American presidential seal? Yeah, well, that's one of the emblems for the tribe of Manasseh. If you were to look up all the various emblems that the tribes of Israel use, you will find those emblems absolutely everywhere, plastered all over the place. But unless you know what they mean, so an easy one will be, one of my favourites is the fleur-de-lis. You know what the fleur-de-lis looks like?
No.
It's like a triple crown. You find it in France, you find it on Scotland, you find it in the Scottish Royal Seal. if you go and listen to people like Jason, he'll tell you it's some ancient energy weapon that's been bound, and no. It's nothing like that. The fleur de lis actually stands for the tribe of Reuben. Now, the tribe of Reuben, the son Reuben, when Rachel was trying to have children, Reuben gave Rachel the mandrake flower, which is a fertility flower. So Reuben gave Rachel the mandrake flower so she could have children, and she had a pair of twins from using this mandrake flower. So this mandrake flower is the fleur de lis, which is why the fleur de lis is then used by the tribe of Reuben as their emblem, representing this mandrake flower. So the fleur de lis is just basically the mandrake flower, which stands for...
Let's back up a little bit. The tribe of Dan are the controllers of this realm.
Some of them.
What you're saying?
Not all of it. The 12 tribes are still alive and kicking today in various factions. So if you took the tribe of Judah, for example, one of their emblems is the lion. Well, we find that in the British Royal Crest. We find the lion absolutely everywhere in Britain. So Britain is still the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah is still in Britain. The tribe of Dan went to Rome, but then they controlled Rome, the city of London, and Washington, D.C. The tribe of Manasseh control America. One of the emblems for the tribe of Dan is the black eagle. You've seen the black double-headed eagle. That's one of the emblems for the tribe of Dan. But then you can expand that, because you find the black double-headed the black eagle. You'll find it in Germany. You'll find it on the flag for Russia, the Russian state. So this is where you need to look to find out these tribes, where they are and who they control. If you look at the royal seals, if you look at family seals, family crests, you find them all over the family crests. And if you were to go and download all these different emblems, and they're not difficult to find, if you were to download all these emblems, you can actually trace these emblems back to royal seals, family crests, flags, etc. And so then you will be able to recognize which tribe control these different places. So it's when you say they, I would say the 12 tribes of Israel. They are the controllers of today. Obviously, some are more powerful than others as time's gone on, but two of the most important ones are the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Dan. They're the really strong ones today, and obviously the tribe of Manasseh in America.
So Atlantis started with the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan were in Atlantis. I'm just trying to back up a little.
All the tribes are the actual various tribes made up Atlantis. I wouldn't call them the tribe. I wouldn't call them the tribes of Israel really until they left Egypt and came back to Britain, because then they're better known as that. But basically, they are tribes that lived in various parts of Atlantis. So, for example, if you take the tribe of the Levites, now in the Bible, the tribe of the Levites protected the tabernacle. Now, if you look in Hebrew or Irish, the V and the W are interchangeable. So where you get Vikings, you can also read Vikings, which is we kings. So if you look back into Ireland and Scotland, and where do we find the Levis? We find the Levis on Lewis, the Isle of Lewis, because all you do is this V and W are interchangeable, and so it's the Levis from Lewis. So you can actually go around Britain and look at all their crests and all these names, and you can actually find out where they actually started. One of these symbols for Judah is the red hand, where you get the red hand of Ulster. That's all over Ireland, is that red hand. Well, that stands for that's the red hand of Judah. So this is where you get all these various tribes that started in Britain, went to Egypt, got kicked out of Egypt, and then came back to Britain. Now, you say Atlantis. Now, that was the Isle of Atlantis. So before the Great Flood, 12,000 years ago.
So let me just get this into my head. So
said it would be.
So what area did Atlantis cover? Because of course we've had the Great Flood, and from what I understand of the Great Flood, that's why we've got all these continents, because it was all one big land.
Might not go that far. When Sirius came back, so I'll just start before Sirius came back, because Atlantis used to be the city of Atlantis, which is the Eye of the Sahara in North Africa, just behind the Atlas Mountains. That was the city of Atlantis prior to the Great Flood. Now, at that point, it was, let's say, it was a global community. Everyone had the same building techniques. We find pyramids everywhere. It was a global knowledge. But the city of Atlantis was the Eye of the Sahara in North Africa.
So Atlantis was one big continent.
I would say it was one big civilization across the planet. I wouldn't go back to, I mean, I know what you're talking about, this Pangea, is it called, when it was all one land mass?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back. I don't go back more than 15,000 years.
Right.
Because it just gets a lot too much speculation and guesswork. So at this point of sort of 15,000 years ago, the city of Atlantis was North Africa, the Eye of the Sahara. That got completely destroyed during the Great Flood, during this devastating period 12,000 years ago when Sirius was back. Yeah. But part of what happened when Sirius was back was it melted the ice caps, and the sea levels rose by 150 meters, 450, 500 foot. 12,000 years ago, that's what brought about the Great Flood and all this flooding and the devastation. And if you actually go and look on Google Earth, you can actually see where the coastlines all used to be. It's fascinating looking at the old coastlines that are buried under the sea now and working out where the land masses used to be, where the seas used to be. The seas used to be tiny. There was so much more land. I mean, they were pretty much all in the same place, but they were tiny. So
did the Ice Age actually happen?
The what, sorry?
Did the Ice Age actually happen?
Again, yes, there was a mini Ice Age, which lasted for about 1,000 years. Now, to explain that, you'd need to watch the three-body problem, because in physics, the three-body problem is basically 1 year it could be absolutely red hot, scorching, everyone getting burnt up and melted. But because of physics and this three-body problem, which you can never ever predict, that's what brought about this mini ice age, and it only lasted for about 1,000 years afterwards. So that takes us to, let's say, that will take you to about 10,000 years ago, as this ice age then started rescinding. Now, why Ireland? Because the Atlantic Gulf current, which goes anti-clockwise around the Atlantic, that brings warm weather and warm water up to up to Ireland. It brings all this hot water and this warm weather up from Africa, and it keeps the southern and the western coast of Ireland artificially warm. So after the Ice Age started rescinding, that bottom, the southeast corner of Ireland was still fertile. It was highly fertile. It was properly good growing land, because, I mean, Plato said Atlantis has 2 growing seasons a year. Ireland has 2 growing seasons a year. But as the ice then started to rescind, the people then moved north. So then this takes us to, let's say, 9,000 years ago. The ice had properly moved up north. The people had then gone and re-inhabited all these islands off like north of Scotland, the Orkneys, Shetland Islands, the Faroe Islands, Lewis, all these islands then got inhabited. Now, this was the point when Ireland and all north of Scotland and all these islands, that area then became Atlantis. Ireland being the city, the island of Atlantis. And again, I'll call on Plato, because Plato said that Atlantis was 6 million square cubits. Ireland is 6 million square cubits. Plato said the capital of Ireland is 80 cubits from the sea. Tara, the royal seat, is 80 cubits from the sea. It had 2 growing seasons a year. Plato also said that it was beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Now, everyone says the Pillars of Hercules. Everyone gets this automatic picture that the Pillars of Hercules were at the Straits of Gibraltar. But there's nothing there at the Straits of Gibraltar. There's absolutely nothing there. So why would anyone say, other than the Eye of the Sahara, there is nothing to say that there are anything? So where are the Pillars of Hercules? Well, the Pillars of Hercules go from the Giant's Causeway, north of Scotland, north of North Island. That's what's left of the pillar in Giant's Causeway. And the other pillar is Fingal's Cave in Scotland. So that's where your 2 pillars were originally situated. And to get to Atlantis, you had to go through these 2 pillars. So this is, when people say Plato said, what everybody says is, Atlantis is beyond the Pillars of Hercules. And that's the only bit that they ever quote. If you go and watch a video called Atlantis Island by Keystone Universities, he does a 3.5 hour documentary, and all he does is break down what Plato said about Ireland, what Plato said about Atlantis, and then compares it to Ireland, and then runs through 3 hours of showing exactly why Ireland was Atlantis. And I guarantee you get to the end of that video and you will be in no doubt that Ireland was the island of Atlantis. So I've pulled a list out, and I'm just going to fly through this list because I'm going to nip back. This is going back to Sirius a minute. You know when I said that Sirius is like seriously important and it has all these names? Well, I've got a list here of probably about 30 names for Sirius. That's everyone cross-referenced. Every one of these names are for Sirius. So I'm just going to fly through these names because most of which you'll heard, some of which you won't. But every single one of these names is referring to Sirius. So I'll just fly through these. Danica, the 7th Holy Star, the Universal Father, Divine Son, Prudence, Minerva, Brilliant Star of Sensitivity, Dharma, Savannah, Ishtar, Inanna, the Scorcher, the Evening Star, Torch of Loki, the Star of Shiva, the Star of the East, Mother Mary, Diana, Guardian of the Gate, Al-Shira, Satan, Lucifer, Sukadin, Neph, Absinthe, Artemisia, Grand Wormwood, Nibiru, Planet X, Tishtira. You've gone. Or you're not back. The Green Fairy, Isis, Horus, Set, the Black Sun, the Sun Behind the Sun, Ra, Argentium Astrium, Silver Star Sirius, and Kinemet.